For these next two problems, we are being asked to graph the inequality. So we are going to have to actually draw the parabola, choose whether it's dashed or solid, and then choose where the shading goes. So let's take a look at that. This first inequality is in vertex form. So remember, we have an H and a K. So that's going to give me my vertex. Remember that inside those parentheses, it's opposite of what I think. So when I see a positive 4, I'm going to go -4 and then down 1. So there is my vertex. I can also see that I am flipped over the x-axis because of that negative sign out in front. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in a couple more points. I started at -4, so I'm going to plug in -3. When I plug in -3, I'm going to get 1 squared is 1, but then I need to stick a negative on it, so -1, and then -1 on top of that, so I'm going to be at -2. And then if I plug in -2, I'm going to have 2 squared, which is 4, but put a negative on it, and then subtract 1 gives me a -5. And that should be plenty of points. I can also mirror on the other side, and this is what my graph looks like. Oh, the other thing is that this is a greater than symbol. It doesn't have the extra or equal to, so this is going to be a dashed line. So I'm going to draw a dashed line here. And then the next thing that I need to identify is whether I'm going to shade above or below. This is a greater than symbol, and a greater than says shade above. So I want to shade up in this area here. So I'll shade all up in this area. We do also kind of come around the parabola, but notice that we are outside of the parabola because going up from the vertex puts us to the outside of the parabola. For problem number 6, we have standard form, so I can identify my A value as the -1 right here, B is -2, and C is -1. Remember that the standard form gives me the y-intercept immediately. C is my y-intercept, so that's going to be here at -1. My axis of symmetry and my vertex are a little bit harder to come by. I can't just read them off the graph, but I can actually calculate it pretty easily. My x value is -b over 2a, which is negative of -2 over 2 times -1, and that's going to give me a -1. So I know that my axis of symmetry is at -1. I can determine the y value of my vertex by plugging into the equation. I can determine the y value for my vertex by just simply plugging in x. So I'm going to say that y is equal to negative of -1 squared minus 2 times -1 and minus 1. This is going to give me a -1, a +2, and a -1, which is equal to 0. So I know that my vertex is at -1, 0. So I can put that right here. Let's go ahead and grab another point or two. If I plug in a 1 for my x value, because I've got -1 and I've got 0, so now I want to go to +1. If I plug in a +1, I'm going to have 1 minus 2 minus 1, and so that is going to give me a -4. All right, that should be enough points, but let's go ahead and do one more. If I plug in a 2 here, I'm going to have -4, and then another -4 and a -1. So we're going to be down at -9. All right, that should give me plenty of points. And the last thing I needed to see is I have a less than symbol. It's not a less than or equal to, so that means that I need to plot a dashed line. I can mirror this and plot the other side. And then I need to determine my shading. This one has a less than symbol, so that means I want to go down or low from the vertex. That puts me inside the parabola. So I'm going to shade in here.